with your colleague. But no, thanks so much anyway for hopping on Heliopolis Radio. So, hi everyone, here it's Mufara, and welcome to Heliopolis Radio. Today I'm joined by Kevin Palmieri, and he specializes in entrepreneurship. He also talks about depression and overcoming that. So he's been kind enough to join us for an hour today, and I hope that you may find what he has to say, useful and helpful in some way. So Kevin, I just extend it to you. Just tell me a bit about yourself and what it is that you do and kind of how you got into the podcast scene and just a bit of a background into your life story and whatever you're comfortable with going into, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I'll tell you, I always try to do research before I meet anybody, before I go on their show. And it's very clear that you have worked on yourself a lot. You're very self-aware. And I was genuinely excited to chat with you today. So I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to it. So today I am the CFO, the host, and the founder of Next Level University. Yes. We're a global top 100 podcast. We have 700,000 downloads, almost 1,200 episodes. So that's the baby. That's my baby. But just like everything else, this isn't where I started, right? I started raised by my mom and my grandmother. I didn't know my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was 27. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life when I was young. I had no idea. I had no clue. I had no vision of where I was going to be in the next, 10, 15, 20 years. But after high school, all my friends went away to college and I knew that I didn't want to do that. So I ended up just getting jobs and I would just jump from job to job to job to job. And eventually I got this very interesting job called weatherization. So it's an industry called weatherization. And all that means is we would go into buildings and we would make them more energy efficient. That was my job in a nutshell. Beautiful thing about it is we were working on state-owned buildings, so I was getting paid really well. And
that's really good.
The difficult part of it, Mufaro, is I was traveling a lot. So there was a lot of travel involved with my work, but I didn't really mind because I was making a lot of money. So if you saw me when I was 25, you would see a man who had the body of his dreams because I had just won a bodybuilding show. I had a high-paying job.
Nice. That's really good. Yeah. And I have a couple of friends that's still into bodybuilding as well. It's actually really stressful. People don't know the amount of discipline and just the intensity behind it, the training, the diet and everything. It's really, really hectic.
It's a lot. So, but after that show, right? So I won this show and I had all the markers of success. Yeah. So I had a beautiful girlfriend, a sports car, I had all that stuff, but I was very miserable. I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't excited for the future. I didn't feel like I was living on purpose. I was just struggling. So my girlfriend ended up leaving me because I was just depressed, anxious, just a shell of myself. So she left me. And when she left, I convinced myself that the only way to make progress would be to make more money. I assumed that was going to fix all the problems. So I said, all right, this next year, I'm going to make the most money I've ever made in my entire life. Wow. And I got a promotion at the beginning of the year. Awesome. That's exactly what I need to happen for me to make all this money. So if you fast forward to the end of that year, I had been on the road for 10 months out of the 12 months, every single week, living in hotels. Wow. It was brutal. But that was in alignment with the goal that I had set. So it wasn't as hard as it actually sounds because I was making progress. So we get to the end of that year. I have my final pay stub in hand. I open it up. I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree.
Incredible,
but nothing changed.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. But nothing changed, right? I still was insecure. I still lacked confidence. I still had a scarcity mindset. The amount of money in my bank account did not fix any of the inner voids in myself. Now, does money buy opportunity? Does it buy certainty? Yes. Does it buy some things? Absolutely. But there are certain things within you that no amount of money, no car, no girlfriend, boyfriend, partner is going to solve. So I always tell that part of the story for that reason. I realized that in that moment, for most of my life, I have been living unconsciously, just going through the motions. I have no idea why I'm doing what I'm doing. Opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. Started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. That is where all of this started for me. And it ended up getting to the point where after I started the show that next year, I was sitting on the edge of a hotel bed debating suicide because I was so stuck in between the life I used to live and the life I want to live and my identity. And I just felt trapped and hopeless and helpless, like there was no way out. And I ended up leaving my job and going full time into what we're doing today and being a very broke entrepreneur for the first couple of years. And
I'm
we
glad I'm not
figured it out,
alone. I'm glad I'm not
right?
alone on that one. But
Yeah. We figured it
no,
out.
thank you so much. I mean, suicide is a very sensitive topic for most people. So just thank you first and foremost for sharing that openly. Um, yeah, I mean, it's weird. I mean, I guess I'm maybe on the opposite end. I would always look at people that would, have things going. And, my journey coming up, at least, it's been a whole combination of failures. It's always been an awkward failure. Something's not happened, or things have just not, like, they've failed spectacularly in a way that, you just look at life and you think, if only things just worked out just this once, then everything would work out for me. But I think for me, it took literally losing my mind. Long story cut short, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And so, I had a manic episode. And I think the peak of, like, I don't want to say actual madness, but the peak of insanity at that edge, I think that's when I realized that in life, nothing is ever good and nothing's ever bad. Things are as they are, and it's your ability to kind of literally be content with whatever you're doing and whatever you're trying to do in this life type thing. So I think it was after that experience where I just said, okay, look, man, I'm just going to put my hand at anything, and it may work, it may fail, it may, it may be humiliating, it may be exciting, it may bring me something, but ultimately it's not going to determine, like, my peace. I think more than anything, I think going through these things that you mentioned, I think you go through these states where you actually find a certain level of peace, and no matter what you're doing, no matter what the circumstances are, you're always good. And so, thank you again for extending into that. And so I just wanted to ask, in terms of starting you moved from, obviously you were employed and you moved to self-employed, just that transition. How did you deal with some of the, the mental battle that comes with it? Because you're moving from a place of comfort, obviously. You have a guaranteed stream of income, which is what most people in this life kind of live. They do everything to get that. And you're kind of moving outside of that. You're literally jumping into a moving train, essentially. And so you're taking the gamble.
Yeah. It's what the interesting thing for me is when I left my job, there was a weight that got lifted off my shoulders, and then there was a new weight that could put on my shoulders. And when I say, I mean, I quite literally felt it. When I cut ties, I was like, wow, I cannot believe how good I feel right now. And then when I realized, okay, now I have to figure all this out, there was a new weight that was on my shoulder, but it was a more aligned, positive weight, if that makes any sense. And in the very beginning, it was this weird thing of, okay, now your job is to get better. That's your job. Your job in a nutshell is to try to get better every single day. And that's by reading books, that's by exercising, that's by making sure you're sleeping right, that's by meditating, that's by coaches and whatever it is, listening to podcasts, doing podcasts. So in the beginning for me, it really wasn't about making money. Now, I had money in the bank. My car was paid off. I lived with my best friend, so I was paying $500 a month. And I was at the point where I was just living off credit cards. It was just like, I have access to $35,000 of credit cards. Like, I'm just going to I'm going to slow play this and I'm going to live off my credit cards. So for me, it really was about, okay, what must I learn and who must I become? And what are the parts of my character that are not going to serve me for the rest of this journey? I think it's time for me to really become a man. I'm no longer a boy. Like, I want to become a man who can really, really serve our community. And the interesting part of it for us is our community is mostly women. And a lot of people wouldn't guess that as a tattooed bodybuilder who loves mixed martial arts and all things fighting.
I do love mixed martial arts myself. It's actually probably become sorry to cut you off. It's probably become the greatest sport to watch right now on the planet. Are you a fan of any fighter in particular?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick a favorite fighter, I would probably say Francis Ngannou is probably my favorite.
He's a beast, eh? He's a beast. He's a beast. His knockout power. I think for me, it'll have to be Israel Adesanya. The way he just mixes things up. I mean, he lost recently, obviously. It was kind of a weird fight. He was winning the first 4 rounds, and then, his leg got compromised, and that was it. But no, I mean, coming back to, sorry.
You're good.
The sidetrack there. It was,
I'm happy to jam. I'll jam on that all day. You're good. So I think I had an understanding that if we're really going to be able to serve our audience, I'm going to have to become a better man.
Yeah.
Not that I wasn't a good man, but I wasn't as character driven as I am today. And that really was the beginning. It wasn't how do I make money as soon as possible. That really wasn't even in the conversation, because we were trying to figure out, what does all this mean? What are the best steps to take? My business partner is very, very long-term strategic. He does not care about the short term at all, at points to a detriment. So we have kind of balanced each other out when it comes to that. But it's not, I would say it's not your average story where people say, well, I immediately went to, how do I make money to support myself? For us, it wasn't that. It was almost, how do we become better men? How do we increase our character? And how do we increase our competence so we can eventually make more money? Now, I always like to throw this out there. Circumstantially, I did not have a family. So I didn't have to provide. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have health insurance. I didn't have a car to pay for. I understand that there's definitely I'm privileged to be able to do it the way I did it. So I understand it's not going to be like that for everybody. And I think that's important to state.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely, at least for people with, obviously everyone's family circumstances different. Apologies, I'm in South Africa this side, so we have these rainstorms coming in. So if there's any audio distortion, if there's any storm, it's just that. But yeah, no, a lot of people, what really puts them off is that they have family ties. So all their decisions, they ultimately have an impact on someone else. So if you're not working and you're not drawing an income, then ultimately, you're kind of selling short on what your obligations, in quotation marks, to your family and your loved ones. So, I mean, that's a massive pressure. And so I was wondering if you had any suggestions for people in that circumstance, and also not just that, for people who may be in a similar circumstance as you are, but just don't have the kind of, maybe, because by the sounds of it, you're kind of open to the whole journey of entrepreneurship. You're very open-minded, and it's almost like an adventure for you. But for most people, it's a plan and it's a process, and there's a lot of, you know what I mean? It's all compartmentalized. There we go. It's all sorted out in their heads. So getting it going is really a difficult thing. It's a difficult jump to make.
Yeah. I always say this: no matter where you're going from to where you're going to, there will always be some sort of mud in the middle. Yeah. You have to just sign up for whatever mud it is that you're willing to crawl through. So this is my example. For me, my mud was leaving a 6-figure job and then making no money, and then being broke, and then being $35,000 in credit card debt, not being able to buy Christmas presents for my girlfriend, who's now my wife. That was my mud, right? Yeah. Somebody else's mud might be, you have to stay at the job that you don't like for a year and a half while you build your side business. You might have to work 15 hours a day. That might be your mud. Another person's mud might be, if you have a family who is supportive, asking them to supplement your income if they're capable of doing that, tucking your tail and saying, look, I'm going to put my pride to the side here to help myself grow. Yeah. We're all going to have mud. I think what we assume is we're going to leave where we are. So my job, quote unquote, is brown grass. I'm going to leave this brown grass and I'm going to go straight to green grass. Yeah. When in reality, you're going to leave the brown grass. You're going to go to the mud. You're going to live in the mud for a while. You're going to come out of the mud, and then you have to plant the grass, and then you have to grow the grass. And eventually that grass hopefully will be greener. So I would say that choose and get familiar with your mud, because most of us do not go from something that we do not like to something that we love overnight. There is a process of growing into what you love.
No, and in terms of the podcasting, you openly state that you have a business partner that you work with. Was this a relationship that was established within the conception of the podcast? Or this is someone who's been with you for the long term, and then you just said, hey, I'm starting a podcast. Would you like to join in? And, I don't know how it goes down. It's always interesting how partnerships come along.
Yeah. So Alan and I went to middle school and high school together. And in middle school, we actually played spin the bottle with the popular girls in his basement. So I've known Alan for a long time. In high school, Alan was an academic, very smart, very intelligent. Yeah. I was a jock. I didn't really care about getting good grades. I didn't really care. Alan and I were not friendly in high school. We had a falling out. So
incredible.
After high school, a few years later, I don't know if it's 3, 4, 5 years later, But Alan and I reconnected at a party. It was like I was probably 25 when we reconnected. And he was in really good shape, and he had a beautiful girlfriend, and he was chasing his dreams. He had left a 6-figure income as well.
Wow.
And I remember he was like the self-improvement guy. He's like, read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, read this. Like, this will be good for you. And then he kind of became my mentor. Really. I mean, that's really what happened is he became my mentor. Mm-hmm. When I was sitting on the edge of the bed having those suicidal thoughts, I texted Alan. And Alan told me, he said, Kev, over the last couple of years, a lot has changed for you, but your environments have stayed the same. I think you need to change your environments. So he was the one who helped me get through that. Then when it was like, all right, I'm going to do this podcast thing full time, we had a discussion. We said we should be doing this together. Like, let's just do this together. He understands business. I understand the podcasting side more. And then boom, from there, we partnered up and we went on, and then we started an actual business. And I have worked to some capacity with Alan every single day for the last 5.5 years. I don't think there's been a day that's gone by where we haven't talked at least once.
And so I don't know if you'd be comfortable going it. So, I mean, it's always interesting when you speak to people, different people around the world. That's always how I think podcasting gives you that connectedness. So it's not that I have an extensive demographic of people I know, but I think there are a couple of people that do follow me that'll be interested in maybe just, so in terms of your various businesses, would you just mind going into each one and particularly what they're about? I know you also mentor as well. So I think that'll be a big one, particularly for people that may be affected with depression as well, and they don't have the courage to maybe speak out about it. At least they somehow have a way to run through you and your company and see how it works. Yeah.
So number one, the biggest part of our business is the podcast, really, where we do an episode every single day. So our thing is self-improvement in your pocket every single day from anywhere on the planet, completely free. We're going to pump out episodes forever, every single day, as long as we are capable of doing it and alive. So that's the big piece of our business. But under that, we have one-on-one coaching where if you're a podcaster and you need help with your podcast, you can hop on the phone with me. If you're a business owner and you need help with your business, you can hop on the phone on Zoom, really, with Alan. Yeah. We have a social media team that does people's social media. So if you don't have time to do social media, we'll do it. We build websites. We host events, we host retreats. I think the biggest thing really is most people should start with the podcast. I really believe that at a deep level. I know a lot of people when they go on shows or they do interviews or whatever it may be, they say, reach out to me for coaching. I think the best thing to do is probably listen to the podcast because it's free. And at least you'll get an idea and an understanding of who we are, our personalities, and how we approach situations. And the reason we do an episode every day is so you can have a mentor in your pocket every day. That's really why we do it the way we do. So, I mean, I'm happy to talk about all things business and what we do. I just don't usually like to do it because I think the best place for people to start is the podcast, not 100%. Giving us money.
No, 100%. Agreed. And in terms of just if you would have any type of advice that you'd give to anyone coming into maybe coming out of a difficult space, let's say, because obviously they're two separate things. I mean, you have your podcast, but I can tell that you've also cultivated a certain, like a type of habit or practice for yourself, a personal practice that keeps you going through. We all know life is full of, I don't want to be rude, but shitstorms. There are a lot of shitstorms that come with life. And so everyone has their way of maintaining it. So I wonder if you'd probably want to share just some core beliefs or principles that you strictly abide by that keep you going through your highs and your lows.
Yeah, one of them for me is no matter how good everything gets, understand that you're still a human and you have problems and you have mistakes and you're not perfect. Like my results do not dictate how valuable I am as a human being, both positive and negative. I don't ever want to let quote unquote success get to my head because that's not why I'm doing this. And that's not how we got here. We got here by being humble and learning every day. So that's one. I think that the deepest part of my belief is that you don't and this can be heavy, and I understand this can be offensive to some people.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily deserve what you don't work for. I have that belief. I just do. I don't believe that I deserve to have the most successful podcast in the world unless I work for it.
100%
That's my belief, right? I don't believe that because I think it's disempowering to think otherwise. I don't deserve to have a better body than I do today because I haven't been putting in the work.
Yeah,
it's just that. It's right. It's that simple. So for me, it's trying to be very, very humble when it comes to people, places, things, ideas, feelings, emotions, results. That's a big one. The other one I think that is super important is personality goes way further than skills in a lot of opportunities. So we just brought 2 new team members on. One of them was sent me an audio message yesterday, and I said, make sure you understand that you deserve this because you've earned this. You have an amazing personality. I've enjoyed talking to you since the first day you and I started talking. You're going to be great here. It's not based on how many skills you have, which you do have a lot. It's based on your character. It's based on the work that you've done on yourself internally. And then I think the last thing really is understand that the small things that you do every single day add up to massive things over months and years. That's really, really important. So I have 24 habits that I try to do every single day. So I learn for 30 minutes. I exercise. I haven't been exercising as much. I've been screwing that up. I play the gratitude game with my wife. So every night before we go to bed, we say one thing we're grateful for about each other. If you can break your life into life, love, health, and wealth, and then start practicing a new habit under each, I think that's like, when we're talking about habits, that's the best way to become holistically well-rounded.
Wow. Yeah, that's it's pretty heavy, actually, pretty intense, but no,
well, don't start there. Don't start with 20. Start with 3, one under each.
No, I think it's a build up to it. And again, I just appreciate you really giving an honest advice about it. Like, at least for most people who are in entrepreneurship and they motivate people, they always promote there's a rosy side to it that people kind of portray to it, and it's possible and you can do it. But it's rare that you meet people like yourself who come in and embrace the grind mentality. And I don't know if it's your athletic background, but I've noticed people who gym, people who have an athletic background, there's like a groundedness to it. So I don't know if you follow the bodybuilder Ronnie Coleman, but he always used to say everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, but nobody wants to lift no damn heavy ass weight. And I think I get the same message and same vibe from you, essentially. So I don't know. I don't know if you
lightweight, baby. That's Ronnie Coleman. Yep,
legend of the sport, man. Oh man, you can't go wrong with the OGs. But is there any means of just contacting you? I know you have your Instagram handle, the Never Quit Kid. So for those of you that don't know, he has an Instagram handle, and within it, there's also a link in a profile to his podcast. So you can follow me, Kevin Palmieri, on Instagram, Never Quit Kid. And then I don't know if you have any additional information that you may want to relay to an audience that might want to contact you at some point.
Yeah, if you want to reach out, my name is, as Mufaru said, Kevin Palmieri. You can search on Facebook, LinkedIn, my Instagram he already gave, and then my email is kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. Any questions you have, whether it's podcasting, whatever, anything you think I might know somewhat of an answer to, please do not hesitate to reach out. I am happy to respond and add any value I can.
And again, I just wanted to extend my thanks to you, Kevin. I truly appreciate it. I hope to have you again at some point in better weather circumstances. And I don't know if you noticed, we had our lighting set up, but in South Africa, there's load shedding. So literally the power just went. And I was like, yep, these are some of the obstacles and hurdles you have to overcome while you decide. In actual fact, I didn't ask, were you obviously you're US based? And so which state are you based in?
I live in New Hampshire on the east coast of the United States. Yep.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So just before I moved back here, I was actually in Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. Nice. So I guess that's where my podcasting journey actually started. It's just now, since I got home, I've started to, kind of try to get the ball running properly this side.
Well, the fact that I know we talked before this, you said you had the flu recently and you're overcoming the flu, and the fact that you have storms going out and you lost your power and you're still doing it, I would bet on you, my friend. I would bet on you.
No, man, and the world is a much better place because you have people like you who have overcome serious difficulties. Truly,
Thank you,
and we appreciate it, and we appreciate you coming on the podcast. And yeah, we hope to really run this up again, and hopefully the quality and everything will come together in due time. It is what it is. You got to be honest with the process. But yeah, again, like you said, it's a journey and you got to embrace everything. You got to embrace the suck sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also good like this. You get to exchange amazing stories, truly. And I can tell, I didn't ask, you're a family man. Are you a dad yet, or you're still kind of holding off on that, on that story?
I'm a cat dad. I'm a cat dad. So I have 2 cats. My wife and I have 2 cats. I don't know yet if we're going to have children. I think in the future, we might look to adoption when we're a little bit later, when we're more financially free and we have the means 100%. To support some other lives.
No, I'm a dog dad, and it's a pit bull, so it's kind of a nightmare all the time. But I get you. Like it's hard enough looking after an animal. I don't think looking after another human being would be any easier or better.
Right. I can only imagine.
In today's world and economy, no, not now. Definitely not now. But no, thanks, Kevin. I truly appreciate it.